everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're having a look at another Devblog for updates and new power, and this is the T-90A. This is one of those vehicles that I know a lot of people have been looking forward to for at least the last few years, something that was seen to be coming last updates, but now is here today. It will be one of many Soviet vehicles that have been added to the game over the last little period, and coming to the USSR at rank 7, and also after the T-72B3, this is going to be the crowning jewel, at least at the moment, of the T-72 line. So the history of this vehicle is kind of complicated, and it starts in 1989 with the Ural Design Bureau of Heavy Engineering. They developed a prototype of a modernized version of the T-72B. It was designated as the Object 188, and the vehicle was a complete overhaul of the T-72, using basically just the shell of it as a basis for a main Soviet battle tank. And the technical solutions that they added was a new fire control system. They added guided weapons, combined protection, and also a completely innovative electro-optical active protection system. And the tank itself, the Object 188, successfully passed tests and was recommended for mass production under the designation T-90. And serial production of the vehicle did start in 1992. But meanwhile, there was a bit of a problem, if you guys didn't know, in the mid-90s, and that was basically the economic crisis in Russia forced the tank builders to stop serial production of the tank. But research and development continued on the T-90 modernization, and this meant that they were looking to export the vehicle to, obviously, foreign operators as well as the Russian army at the time. So when the economic situation in the industry began to improve, the tank builders combined their developments into an upgrade program, which eventually became what you see before you, the T-90A. And unlike the basic version, this new tank featured a slightly more powerful engine. It also had a welded turret and with improved protection on it. And the main difference was the increase in firepower potential with the new cannon and a modern fire control system with an advanced thermal sight. So the T-90A tank was produced from 2004 to 2011, but it isn't the main battle tank for the Russian Federation. That goes to the T-72B3, at least at the moment. So yeah, this vehicle is coming to the game in updates, new power, and it does bring along a lot of features which you don't see on other Soviet vehicles, which is kind of nice to see. This is really the first new, MBT at high tiers, which has offered something different from the standard, the 3BM42, the same weak spots, the same general acceleration, the same reload. All of the tanks, at least for me, are slightly better or slightly worse versions of each other when it comes to the Soviet tech tree. So when it comes to the T-90A, being the new top-tier tank for the USSR tech tree, the characteristics of it are very interesting, starting off with the engine. So this machine has a 1,000 horsepower engine, so it should have very good acceleration, had a decent top speed, but it will still have the low reverse speed of the T-72. That was only really improved with the T-80 series, so once you're in a situation with this machine, you're either going to have to turn tail and run, or you're going to have to fight it out. That's pretty much the general way this is going to work. The T-90A also has a different turret. It's a upgraded welded turret over the basic T-72. It also has access to Contact 5 era plates on the turret, so extra protection. The question is, will this thing actually have more of a defense compared to, the T-72B or even the T-80? It says here that, the turret's durability will be increased, but it still has a traditional vulnerable zone in the area of the gun, and bracer remains. So it doesn't matter. It still has the same weak spot. So it literally doesn't matter. But The protection of the vehicle is slightly lower on the sides of it, mainly because it doesn't have access to relic ERA. Instead, it just has the standard Contact 5 ERA, which is still good, but it isn't relic. And as a person who has fought against relic ERA, one of the most annoying things about relic ERA is if you don't have a top round. So let's say you're using 3BM22 instead of 3BM42, or you're using DM23 instead of DM33. Relic eats the worst round, and it doesn't eat the later round, but because it eats the worst round, it makes spading vehicles harder to do because of that fact, and it's incredibly annoying to deal with. When it turns out, when you face a T-72B3, when you're fully spaded and you have your best round, normally relic doesn't make any difference at all. But while you're spading, then it's the issue, which isn't a surprise, especially with the stock heat FS change with it. So overall, when we look at the turret, it should be a little bit tougher than the T-72. The general armor layout, though, of this machine is pretty much the same. So I'm pretty sure it's going to have the same weak spots as all of the other Soviet tanks, including the T-80s, so the T-72s, the T-80s, and now the T-90s, which will be lower glacis, driver's ports, and then maybe not certain areas of the turret where you can go through. So if you just learn where to shoot these things, you should still be able to go through the armor without any issue. All of the Soviet vehicles have the same weak spots, so just learning them, and no matter what you fight, no matter what Soviet machine you face, you know where to pen it, and you can one-shot it easily through either the low glacis or mainly through the driver's port. The driver's port will one-shot these machines every time. So the gun isn't different to the T-72B3. The only difference is that it gets more variations of ammo. So they're actually giving it a better round, and they're also giving it a new high-speed ATGM. Now, this is to make the machine 10.7, because all of the other factors do not make it 10.7. So the APF SDS they're giving it is the 3BM42M. This is an upgraded version of the 3BM42, and what it does is more penetration. Basically, they showed it on the dev stream when they were looking at the T-90A. Unfortunately, it wasn't available on the dev server, so I couldn't get a look myself, but maybe in the future we'll have a look at it, hopefully over the weekend. And then also this ATGM round is kind of interesting. So the new APF SDS, obviously in the form of the 3BM42M, is already interesting. Then the ATGM has a programmable proximity fuse ANET round, which is... oh no, actually, is that talking about the ATGM? Yes, it is. So this is very similar to, that HE round that the M1A2 has, and it has a high velocity kind of HEVT round is probably the best way to do it. So it's designed to throw at stuff like helicopters, explode, and absolutely massacre the helicopter. Well, the T-90 has something similar in its arsenal when it comes to trying to deal with stuff like helicopters, maybe planes, or even just lighter targets if you want to do that. Personally, when it comes to ATGMs, most of them at top tier are generally not very useful. That's because people are walking around with a lot of composite armor and that has a lot of chemical protection, but the ATGMs that the Soviets use for many of their vehicles, such as the Chrysanthema and also their MBTs, are generally still pretty good because of their tandem nature, by how they defeat the armor and then go through and then explode. So overall, the Soviet ATGMs are pretty good, but the majority of other individuals are not really using them unless it's from stuff like helicopters. So The other thing as well for the T-90A that it has equipped to it, it has second generation thermals for the gunner. I don't think it has any for the commander, but it will have it for the gunner, which means that it is the best Soviet tank when it comes to thermals, which isn't premium. Obviously, the T-72AV should have commanders and gunners second gen thermals, but everything else, the B3, the T-80U, and other vehicles around the place, whenever they're added, they have a bit of a rough time when it comes to being able to see in night battles. So that is a big plus for this, because at least for me, one of the problems with playing the 9.7 lineup, the T-72B, and then the 1989 T-72B at the time, which is now 10.0, and the T-64B, I resented night battles because of the fact that I didn't have thermals, and I just felt like it was so unbalanced with fighting people who do have thermals. I still think it's unbalanced now, having played both sides of the coin. So the T-90A, on top of the new turret, on top of the better rounds, on top of the increased mobility, it also has access to an electro-optical jammer and also laser IR warning system. This will be the first Soviet vehicle or Soviet MBT that has LWS, so you'll know when you're getting lasered, whether it's from the ground or whether it's from the air. So as somebody who has played the Type 90 with this, I would definitely say it's actually a big plus, because you know when a helicopter is lasering you, so therefore you can get behind something. It saved my life a lot of times when it comes to top tier. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work with the T-90, because the mobility of it compared to something like a Type 90 is not really there, so getting to defensive positions quickly is going to be hard to do. I just know for a fact that the LWS system works really well, and I definitely would say it's a very good system. So there's two groups of radiation warning sensors on this machine. They're installed on the tank turret, course detection sensors in the lateral directions and the rear hemisphere, as well as sensors for precise detection of radiation sources in the front projection of the turret. These sensors provide the commander with information about the direction from which the irradiator, the rangefinder, or the guiding beam operates on the tank. If the missile has already been fired at your tank, the optical jammer is used. The powerful infrared lights of the Storer system transmitted coded pulsed infrared jamming to the missile control coordinator. So basically it will screw up the guidance of the ATGM coming in. And the system works only against ATGMs with an automatic guidance system with optical feedback, which is the TOW, HOT, Conkers, Attacker, and also others. It doesn't jam missiles with laser and laser beam guidance, so it's going to be completely useless against stuff like Hellfires, is basically the way to put that. And then their launch may be detected by a laser radiation sensor. And the same IR lights can also work as IR illuminators for night vision devices. However, simultaneously unmasking the tank in the infrared spectrum, the sector of action of the Storer lights is about 40 degrees in azimuth from the axis of the gun. The vertical vector is only 4.5 degrees. So it's not exactly going to be great against helicopters, but it will be good against vehicles on the ground. Now, as I said before, there aren't many machines at top tier that are slinging missiles around unless they're Soviet ones. So if you're in arcade, I can definitely understand why this might be a big deal. But in realistic, I really don't see the big deal of this APS system unless I'm really missing something. I think actually the LWS system on it right now is much more positive and much more interesting for it. But as I said, I could easily be missing something when it comes to its usefulness. Hopefully the T90 will be available on a second dev server so we can have a look at it and understand how how its systems work and give it a good old full run of tests. And yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. It's nice to see another high-tier Soviet MBT. It comes in along the lines of the 2A6, the Leclerc S2, and also the STRV 122B. Seems like America's being left in the dust a little bit, so we'll see what they get as well. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Trigger Hippie, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hans, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.